Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. There is not a more important case pending in our country right now than the Delphi murders case. Every case in our system is about justice, and this case is more than most a test of what the justice system really means. The justice has to be first and foremost for Abigail Williams and Liberty German, a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old best friends who went for a walk together in a park in a small community, Delphi, Indiana. They were found brutally murdered the next day. And that is, of course, first and foremost what justice has to be about. But there's more to it because justice has to be about everybody in the situation. Right now, the state is prosecuting a man named Richard Allen. They say he did it. If he did, then justice absolutely requires that he receive the strictest possible sentence under the law. There's no question about that. But is he the right guy? Many people think he's not. His lawyers have presented some alarming evidence to suggest that other people may have been responsible instead of Richard Allen. And if Richard Allen is not the right guy, then it's not justice for him to go to prison. And it's certainly not justice for the people who actually did commit the crime to go free, for people who committed heinous murders to suffer absolutely no consequences for it. So at this point, somebody asked early on in the questions I saw in the chat, I wonder what Lee's opinion is. I truly don't know. I need evidence. I need to understand what the state has, what Richard Allen's evidence is. And it's all complicated by the fact that there's a judge involved in the case who has repeatedly ruled against Richard Allen, the defendant, and said he will not be able to present his best evidence at trial, at least right now, barring some additional information coming in. So is that going to create injustice? Will the real murderers go free? Or is Richard Allen the right guy? I don't know, but I think this case is critically important. I do think it is a test of who we are as a nation and of what the justice system means. And it's not going to be televised. It will be hard to get real-time reports. So I've decided I am going to go to the trial in person so I can report back to you. I think it's that important. Jury selection and trial starts on October 14th, and I plan to actually be there reporting on this case daily. I'm going to go live every day and give you an update on what happened that day at the trial. So to prepare and for all of us to be ready for that, I want to systematically go through what we know about the case so far. Now, tonight is part one, and there will be many parts. This is the state's case against Richard Allen. I want to say thanks to Michael S. for sending me this pleading document. The judge has not made the pleadings available on the public website, so it can be difficult to actually get hold of them. And tonight we're going to be looking at the state's affidavit for the search warrant of Richard Allen. Now, on other nights, and we're going to be going live most weeknights, we're going to cover the investigations that went on for years, because this is a 2017 murder, and the twists and turns and the different suspects along the way. We're going to look at maps. We're going to plot out what happened. We're going to look at the other suspects. We're going to talk about Richard Allen's evidence that other people actually committed this crime. For now, the judge has ruled that the jury's not going to see or hear that evidence. I think that's a huge mistake. I think the chances that the case will have to be retried are much higher if he's not allowed to present this evidence. So we're going to look at the other evidence that we know about, the blood evidence, geofencing, which the jury will not hear about. That's part of what the judge has excluded. We're going to at least some parts of it. We will definitely look at Richard Allen's confessions, 61 of them, which the defense says happened because he was drugged. So we'll be ready for trial, and I am really looking forward to bringing it to you. Be sure to hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss this series. It's really going to be important, and I think you'll enjoy learning about the trial, and we'll watch it unfold together. So as soon as my voice is all the way back, we're going to be doing a members-only event. I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes, giving you a look at what I plan to do for the trial and how I plan to cover it. I'll be asking for some of our members' help with looking at the evidence, with looking at the research, making sure we're ready to go and that we've learned as much as we can about the case before it gets started. So let's get started tonight. We're going to be looking at the affidavit filed as an exhibit to the state's response to Richard Allen's motion to suppress. That sounds complicated. We'll get into that. I'll talk about it. It was filed on June 13th, 2023. It was actually filed with a court prior to that. But as far as the document available to the public, it was filed then, and the judge made it public in a large dump of documents after there were some objections to how much had been sealed. Yeah, I'm going to pause it and then make comments along the way. My voice is still weak from being sick, so I'm going to have a reader for the main text, and we're also, assuming we have time and my voice holds out, we're going to begin our timeline tonight. You know, I love timelines. They help me understand a case and they help me explain it to you. So a special shout out to our first 5 in the chat tonight: Olivia's mom, aka Sue, DJ, Eileen, Firm, and Loretta. So, okay, let's get started. I want to add to the stage.
Monday, February 13, 2017 at approximately 1:50 p.m. Abigail.
And I always do this, right? I get started and then I'm like, wait, there's more I want to say. So let me, I'm going to flip over and show you. I want to show you the very beginning of the document so we can talk through and I can explain exactly what you're seeing. So let me add this to the stage. This is the affidavit for search warrant, and I'll read just the first paragraph. Carroll County Sheriff's Department Detective Tony Liggett swears or affirms that he believes and has good cause to believe that evidence relating to the crime of murder in violation, and they named the Indiana Code, is located at the residence of Richard M. Allen. So what they're asking the court is, we want to go get evidence at his house. We need you, judge, to give us a search warrant, because the police cannot just enter someone's home here in our country and begin pulling stuff up. That's not how it works. You have to get permission from the court. And take a look at what they're wanting and what it says Detective Liggett believes may be found there. Handguns, 40 caliber ammunition, directly pinpointing the type that they think. By the way, they were not killed. The girls were not killed with a gun. But authorities believe that Richard Allen had a gun and that he used that to intimidate them and to get them into a position where he was able to murder them with the next item, knives. Blue sweatshirt jackets, and you'll see references to that. Black sweatshirts jackets. There's some question about what color. Clothing was being worn by the person they believe committed the crime. Clothing, electronic devices, and a cell phone with the number specifically given. Okay, so I will, now let's add this back to the stage. I'm going to stop it and start it over again. And this is a voice that's generated, so some of the pronunciations may be a little strange. We'll just have to deal with that.
On Monday, February 13, 2017, at approximately 1:50 p.m., Abigail Williams and Libby German were dropped off by a family member at the Monon High Bridge Trail off of County Road 300 North, on Tuesday, February 14, 2017, at approximately 12:17 p.m. The girls were found deceased. Their bodies were located in the woods northeast of the Monon High Bridge. Autopsies of the girls.
And I think they call it Monon High Bridge, but it's funny sometimes how he says these things.
Girls ruled their deaths as homicides, and their wounds were caused by a sharp object. Investigators located Libby German's iPhone 6S under her body at the scene.
Let me stop it right there. That phone is critically important, and it's critically important for more than one reason. It's critically important because of the evidence that he's about to describe that's on the phone, a video. There is actually going to be video of the person they believe killed Libby and Abby. And that was who can even imagine how much presence of mind she had to have begun the filming. But that phone is also important because of the fact, to Richard Allen's defense, because it turns off at a time when Richard Allen is, according to authorities, already gone and no longer there. And it can't be that it died, because it cuts back on the next morning. And that's part of what the evidence for Richard Allen will be.
And were able to recover a video, approximately 43 seconds in length, captured at 2:13 p.m. on February 13, 2017.
That video is not available to the public. There is a clip, and we will include that when we do the investigation, which may be tomorrow if possible, or Friday. When we cover part 2, the investigation, I'm going to show you that clip where we actually have a clip and some sound. That's the only piece of it that has been given out. The rest of it will be shown at trial.
The video depicts Abigail walking on the Monon High Bridge toward Liberty while a male subject wearing a dark jacket and jeans walks behind her. Near the end of the video, the man is heard in the video telling the girls, "Down the hill." Through further investigation of the location of the bodies, investigators also located a .40 caliber unspent round. They also determined that articles of clothing from the girls were missing from the scene, including a pair of underwear and a sock.
They believe that those may have been trophies taken by the killer. At least that was suggested in some of the early discussion from the police about what might have been happening there. I underlined a few things because they are going to be critical evidence. The dark jacket and the jeans, for example, you're going to see a lot of different testimony about what the person, the man that several people saw there at the park was wearing. And it ranges from a light blue jacket to black to blue. And no doubt there will be discussion from Richard Allen's team that these are different. These are different people. There was more than one person there. We'll probably hear that at trial. The unspent round, according to prosecutors, matches a gun that Richard Allen had in his home. And then there are the articles of clothing that are missing. So there are little bits of evidence that have leaked out, but not, frankly, a full understanding. That will come at trial.
Through the investigation, there were interviews done with 3 of the 4 girls that were on the trials that day.
Could be trails.
The girls
That's what it
observed
said,
a male
though.
on the trails on February 13, 2017 that matched the description the male in the video recorded by Libby German. The 3 girls, identified as Rayleigh Voorhees, Brianna Wilbur, and Anna Spath, encountered this male near a bench east of the Freedom Bridge. The girls were on the trail and were walking towards the Freedom Bridge to go home. The male they encountered was walking from the Freedom Bridge towards the Monon High Bridge. One of the 3 girls, identified as Anna Spath, described the male as an older man walking on the trails as they were leaving, and she described him as kind of creepy. In a text from Anna to Kyla Brummett, Ann described the man as wearing like blue jeans, like really light blue jacket. His hair was gray, maybe a little brown, and he did not really show.
Let me stop
face.
it there. Did not really show his face. And let me pull it back just a little bit to this. Want to talk for just a minute about that. And I'm guessing her name is pronounced Spath instead of Spath, but who knows? That's what AI thinks anyway. Now, the descriptions of the person that the girls saw, these are 3 girls who were out taking a walk, but police believe that these girls saw the person who murdered Libby and Abby. And they described this older man who was creepy, who was very cold, who didn't speak to them as they were walking by, which makes it even more fascinating that police initially put out, you'll hear about that when we cover the investigation, police initially put out a sketch of someone who frankly looks a lot like Richard Allen, an older person, not way older, I think he's 50, but someone who not young like these girls were, someone older, and then later put out yet another sketch of a clearly younger person, someone who frankly looked to be in his teens. And they said, ignore the first sketch, go with this one, and now they've gone back to the first sketch. So all of that is going to be fodder for what Richard Allen will argue.
His hair was gray, maybe a little brown, and he did not really show his face. Investigator Steve Mullen and Brent Ingram interviewed Anna, and she described the male as wearing a blue jacket and light blue, faded blue jeans. The jacket was a canvas duck-type jacket. Rayleigh Voorhees was also in the group of 4 girls, and she said hi to the man, but he just glared at them. She recalled him being in all black and had something covering his mouth. Rayleigh recalled telling her sister that someone was in a grumpy mood. She went on to describe him as not very tall and bigger build. She said that he was not bigger than 5'10". Rainey went on to say in an interview that he was wearing a black hoodie, black jeans, and black boots. She said that he had his hands in his pockets.
Now, that probably based on that description you saw, the black boots and so forth, doesn't really match with the photograph that Libby German has on the still shot from the video that she took there on the bridge. So there are several different descriptions of what the clothing was of this person. Overall, though, there seems to be a general consensus that it was darker, with one exception, someone saying it was light blue, but mostly that it was darker. And there seems to be some consistency across that, although it's not 100%.
Interview was conducted in 2020 of Bree Wilbur. She was able to show investigators a picture that she took on her phone of the Monon High Bridge with a timestamp of 12:43 p.m. EST. Bree showed investigators another picture she took at the bench just east of the Freedom Sack Bridge when they were leaving at 1:26 p.m. EST. Bree stated after she took the picture at the bench, they started walking back towards the Freedom Bridge. Bree stated that's when they walked past the man who matched the description of the individual in the picture. Detective Liggett believes the picture that she is referring to is the picture law enforcement released of the man on the bridge, taken from the video Liberty captured on her cell phone on the day of the murders. Bree described the man as wearing a blue or black windbreaker jacket. She stated the jacket had a collar and he had his hood up from the clothing underneath the jacket. Bree advised he was wearing baggy jeans and was taller than her. She stated her head came up to approximately his shoulder. Bree told us Rayleigh said hi to the man, and he said nothing back. Bree described the man as walking with a purpose, like he knew where he was going. Bree also stated the man had his hands in his pockets and kept his head down. She didn't get a good look at his face, but believed he was a white male.
So again, you can see all of the different colors and descriptions. It's not entirely consistent. And frankly, that's normal for eyewitness testimony. It's very rare, really, that there's complete agreement because the people just don't remember that way. They don't remember that specifically. So there will be some inconsistency. In addition to that, Richard Allen's lawyers believe that some of the statements in here misrepresent what the people actually said to the police. And that's one of the arguments that he has made in his filings. So we will be hearing a great deal about this, but you can see that the prosecution is trying to paint a picture where a lot of people saw Richard Allen. They saw somebody who looked like him. They have a generally consistent description of him, and they've got pretty precise time frames. Richard Allen admits he was there. You'll hear that in just a minute. He acknowledges that he was there at the park walking the trails on that day. There's video of his car coming and going in the area. So that's what they will be presenting. They're trying to present a picture that they have fairly specific evidence about exactly when he was there and exactly when the girls were murdered. And we'll look at that on the timeline as we get started on that tonight.
As the girls left, they crossed the Freedom Bridge and the railroad bridge over old SR-25. An individual by the name of Betsy Blair was returning to the trails to finish her walk. Betsy Blair is seen on video at Hoosier Harvestor on 300 North, traveling eastbound to the trailhead to park at 13:20 actual time. Blair saw the girls walking above as she went under the railroad bridge. On September 21st, 2022, Detective Liggett was provided a tip narrative from Orion Diane C007401 to review. It was from DNR Lieutenant Dan Doolin. The narrative was as follows.
I think that's so funny that they read the numbers fast. I appreciate that. It's kind of a boring part. One of the things that Richard Allen's team may talk about is the timing of Betsy Blair, which does seem to be a little off when it comes to when exactly Libby and Abby were there. It doesn't quite fit. So we will look at that when we look at the timeline.
Mr. Allen was on the trail between 13:30 to 15:30. He parked at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the new Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noted one was taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember description, nor did he speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He stated there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trail head, however, did not pay attention to them. He did not take any photos or video. His cell phone did not list an IMEI, but did have the following: MEI 56 691 463 100, I 53 495, MAHEX 9900 705 797. Potential follow-up information: who were the 3 girls walking in the area of Freedom Bridge through the...
And of course, we already know the answer to that. We already know who the 3 girls are, and we've just seen it in this exact affidavit. But just for your information, whoops, there we go. Just for your information, the IMEI would be a specific identifier for a phone. And they're saying, I guess he had an older cell phone and it didn't have one. It didn't have a specific identifier. So that may be part of the reason why they weren't able to track it, at least that we know about. There is presumptively a good amount of evidence that will be presented at trial that the public does not know about yet. The state doesn't have to tell the public every piece of its evidence early on. They can wait for that.
Did have the following: MEI 56 691
Let me move forward. We don't need to listen to that again.
Walking in 13th, 2017. He parked his vehicle at the old...
Let me go ahead and read. Though the statement of Mr. Allen, he admits that on February 13th, 2017, he parked his vehicle at the old farm building. And then I think they're going to read this time pretty funny. We'll get to
Old Farm Bureau building from 1330 to 1530 hours and was on the trails at that time. There is no old Farm Bureau building anywhere close to the trails or bridges. Detective Liggett believes he is referring to the old Child Protective Services building. In 2017, Richard Allen owned a 2016 black Ford Focus and a 2006 gray Ford 500. Upon review of video collected from the Hoosier Harvest Store on February 13, 2017, investigators were able to locate a vehicle that appears to match Allen's 2016 Ford Focus on the video at 13:27 hours actual time. This coincides with Allen saying he was at the trails around 13:30 hours.
13:30 hours. Yes, that's when he was there. So we'll look at all of that on the timeline, but they are placing Richard Allen by his own admission, and this is long before he was drugged, but it's also nowhere near a confession of murder. But they're placing him at the scene where the girls were. And notice that no one else, there's a general description of a male alone that we see repeatedly, but there's not a description of, a dozen men roaming through here or even multiple men. It's each time somebody talks about it, they see a male.
Detective Liggett then examined the timeline for the day of the homicides. As previously said above, Rayleigh Voorhees, Brianna Wilbur, and Anna Spath were leaving the Grok trails and passed by a male matching the description of the male in the video taken by Liberty. Given the statements by Allen and the timestamp of the video from the Hoosier Harvest Store and the statements from the 3 of the 4 girls, Detective Liggett believes that the male the 3 of the girls saw was in fact Richard Allen. Allen stated that after he passed the girls and then he walked to the Monon High Bridge and saw nobody else. Investigators believe that after passing the Hoosier Harvest Store at 1346 hours, Blair parked at the trailhead entrance across from the Mears residence. In her interview, she says there are no other cars at the trailhead entrance at that time. She walked to the Monon High Bridge and a male matching the male from Liberty's video. She described him as a white male wearing blue jeans and a blue jean jacket.
So again, pretty consistent on what the person looks like. Again, it's a single male. The timing, we'll look at that when we get to our timeline. But in general, they're circling in, the state is on this concept that there was a single person there. And that will be, we're going to look at the investigation, but you will see that even as they arrested him, the state was referring to potential other suspects. and to potential other people who might have been involved on the day of the announcement that he had been arrested for this. But this description is really focused in on a single person, a single male wearing dark clothing.
This matches the blue duck canvas jacket Anna Spath describes. Blair said that the male was standing on the first platform of the Monon High Bridge, approximately 50 feet away from her. Blair turned around at the bridge and continued her walk. Approximately halfway between the bridge and the main hub of trail, she passed two girls walking towards the high bridge. Blair said that she believed it was Liberty German and Abigail Williams. At 1349 Urs, on the Hoosier Harvestor video, there is a white car that matches Kelsey German's vehicle. Liberty and Abigail would have been dropped off right before this video. Blair finished her walk and is seen on the Hoosier Harvestor video leaving westbound at 1414 Urs. Blair said that she saw no adults other than the male on the bridge.
So think through. I don't know how old this person is, but I gather, because in another place she's referred to as one of four girls, so I gather she's younger. But she came up to the bridge, was 50 feet away from Richard Allen, did not cross the bridge, which, by the way, is terrifying looking. It's been partially replaced, but I can't believe anybody crossed that thing. But she turned around and went back the other way, and she runs into what the people she believes are Libby and Abby. They're on their way. They're about to encounter this person on the bridge. That's what the state is arguing, what the state says. Now, was he on the bridge? We don't really know the answer to that, but there is, as we understand it, there is a point in time when on the video, you are able to see a man walking behind Abby on the bridge. That is part of what hasn't been released yet. When I did the description, the thumbnail, I put it there just sort of imagining how it might be, but we don't have that actual video still yet that we here will have.
As Blair was leaving, she noted a vehicle was parked in an odd manner at the Old Child Protection Service building. She said that it was not odd for vehicles to be parked there, but it was odd that it was backed in near the building.
The obvious point that the police are making is that Richard Allen or whoever drove this car was trying to conceal their license plate. They were trying to conceal the fact that they had been there. That's an interesting argument because there's no reason for Richard Allen to have believed that he would have encountered young girls alone at the park. It was the case that someone encountered them and murdered them while they were there, but they didn't, from the description that I've read, they didn't even know in advance that they were going to go. They just decided, hey, let's go out to the park. Unless some of the other suspects were involved, there doesn't seem to be any real explanation for how Richard Allen just happened to be in that park. And was it just happenstance? Was he just able to find these people at a time when he wanted to commit a crime? It's a little bit questionable right there as to exactly what the state is going to maintain.
She said that vehicles often use the south edge of the parking lot, so they are closer to the trail to get to the Freedom Bridge. Detective Liggett reviewed a tip, DNC 01751, from Terry Wilson. Wilson was on his way to Delphi on February 13, 2017, on the Hoosier Heartland Highway at approximately 1410ers. He observed what he described as purple PT Cruiser, or a small SUV-type vehicle parked on the south side of the old CPS building. Wilson said that it was backed in as to conceal the license plate of the vehicle. During their interviews, both Blair and Wilson drew a diagram and had the vehicle they saw parked in the same general area and manner.
Now, that's interesting because a purple PT Cruiser looks nothing like Richard Allen's gray car. But they both agree that whatever vehicle it was pulled in backwards, and they both pointed to that.
An interview was done of Sarah Carbaugh in 2017. She states that she was traveling east on 300 North and observed a male subject walking west on the north side of 300 North, away Monon High Bridge. She stated that he was wearing blue-colored jacket and blue jeans and was muddy and bloody. She further stated
that is huge evidence. And the defense says they got it wrong. The defense says that's not what she really said, but muddy and bloody, hugely important. If she saw someone walking along at the exact time that Richard Allen says he was walking along, someone wearing the same clothes he was wearing, someone muddy and bloody, that would obviously be really critical evidence. And the defense says they got that wrong. That isn't what she really said. Marlon, I appreciate very much the super chat. Thank you very much. And for Dolly also. Yes, I am definitely feeling better. Thank y'all.
It appeared he had gotten into a fight. Investigators determined from the video that she was on 300 North at 1557 Urs. Richard M. Allen was interviewed by investigators on October 13, 2022 at Investigation Center. He was interviewed by Detective Liggett and Carroll County Prosecutor Investigator Stephen Mullen. He agreed to come to the center and speak with investigators. He was advised his rights, and he was further advised that he was not under arrest and was free to leave at any time. Investigator Mullen explained to him how to leave the center if he so desired.
So what's the obvious point of that is that they're saying that he could have left and everything he said in the course of that was voluntary. He had the option of leaving and he chose to stay and he chose to give the information to police. Now, this was not their first encounter with him because shortly after the event, there had been a request by investigators for anyone who was in the park to come forward and to tell them anything they had seen. And he did do that at that time. So investigators had already talked to him, but this 2022 interview is obviously different.
He stated that he was in fact on the trails on February 13, 2017. He further stated that he saw 3 girls on the trails east of the Freedom Bridge and also that he went on to the Monon High Bridge. He also told investigators that he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood on that day. He stated he also wore some type of head covering. He further claimed that he saw no one else but the 3 girls that he observed east of the Freedom Bridge. Further, prior to the interview, he told investigators that he also had guns at this home. Richard M. Allen's wife, Kathy Allen, spoke to investigators as well. She confirmed that Richard did have guns and knives at the residence. She also stated that Richard still has a blue Carhartt jacket.
Now, that's fascinating. Did they find the blue Carhartt jacket? Because there really should have been blood on it. Remember, someone else supposedly said that it was muddy and bloody. So if that Carhartt jacket is still there at Richard Allen's home, they should have found it, and it most likely would have had blood on it. So we don't know about that yet. We don't know if they found that jacket or maybe it had been disposed of. But his wife said he still had it at the jacket. He still had it at his home. So thank you, Spence. I appreciate that. I'm really looking forward to covering the case. I really am.
The evidence gathered shows that on February 13, 2017, that 4 girls, Rayleigh Voorhees, Brianna Wilbur, Anna Spath, and Isabel Voorhees, were on the trail when they observed a male individual walking on the trails towards the Monon High Bridge. The male was wearing clothes similar to the clothes of the male depicted in the video taken from Liberty German's phone. Investigators know that this male is the last known individual to have contact with Liberty German and Abigail Williams before they were murdered. Further, Betsy Blair was shown a picture of the individual on the Monon High Bridge, and she says that is the same individual that she witnessed on the trails and on the bridge. In an interview with Richard M. Allen, done on October 13, 2022, he admits that he was in fact on the trails on February 13, 2017, and walked past the 3 girls and continued on to the Monon High Bridge. He stated that he was physically on the bridge. After Betsy Blair sees this individual, there are several other individuals on the trail that don't observe the man, or Liberty German, or Abigail Williams. Sarah Carbaugh.
And what's the point of that? They're suggesting that's because he has taken the girls somewhere else. No, they were actually found a decent distance away down the stream that was running underneath the bridge and across the stream on a private property. They were found, and one of the suspects was, not surprisingly, the person who owned the private property, someone who has since died, named Ron Logan.
Then observes a man walking down 300 North with a blue jacket and jeans, and that he is muddy and bloody, as if he had just been in a fight. She is shown a picture of the man on the bridge, and that is the same man she observed walking on 300 North. Investigators believe that Richard M. Allen is the last individual to have contact with Liberty German and Abigail Williams. Investigators further believe that Richard M. Allen is the individual depicted on the Monon High Bridge from the video taken from Liberty German's phone. That on Monday, February 13th.
Let's stop it. Okay, so that is what was filed to get the search warrant of Richard Allen's home. Now, as I said, there are disagreements over whether or not all of the information in it is accurate. In fact, Richard Allen's team says it wasn't, that it misrepresents what some of the witnesses said. We will, of course, hear from those witnesses at trial, and I will report to you, did they say that? Did they not say that? Is Richard Allen right? Is the state right? We'll talk about that every night when I go to the trial and as I report back to you. And Kelly, thank you. I'm very glad to be feeling better too. Being sick is completely the worst. Thank you very much. All right. So let's take a look. I think we have enough time to take a look at our beginnings of a timeline. I'm going to switch over to our new timeline for this. I'm going to sort of what I did was I took the affidavit and tried to pull out just the times. And then, as you can see, I've highlighted the names so we can kind of follow what each person ought to testify to based on what the affidavit says that person would say. So at 12:43, we've got Bree Wilbur taking pictures of the Monon High Bridge as Rayleigh Voorhees, Anna Spaeth, and she are on the trails. And they encounter that older man they talked about who glares at them. They say hi. He doesn't respond. Richard Allen is later going to say that he was on his phone looking at the stop ticker. So maybe that's all he would say it was. But they actually encounter this man and they describe him as older. 126, Bree Wilbur takes a photo as they're leaving just east of the Freedom Bridge. And I think that's important mostly for the timestamp that would come with the photograph being taken. 127, video at the Hoosier Harvest Store shows a vehicle matching Richard Allen's 2016 Ford Focus. So you can see that there's a little bit of a mismatch here already, because at 12:43, they've seen an older man on the trail who glared at them, but Richard Allen isn't even in the area until 1:27 p.m. after that. And video shows him in the 2016 Ford Focus. He says that he arrived at 1:30 p.m., tells officials he arrived at the trail then, and says he saw 3 females. Then at 1:46, Betsy Blair is captured on video traveling east to park at the trailhead. So another potential witness here. She sees the 3 girls walking as she went under the railroad bridge. Now, they actually said in the affidavit girls, but I interpreted it to mean in context the 3 girls, not Libby and Abby. She sees a man about 50 feet away standing on the bridge as she walks toward the Monon High Bridge. She turns around at the bridge, and then she sees 2 girls walking toward the high bridge. Now, here again, the timing is a little off. That's at 1:46. Go down to the 1:49 entry. Let me make sure, yeah, you can see it. Okay. Video from the Hoosier Harvest Store captures a white car matching Kelsey German's vehicle. That's the sister of Libby. Libby and Abby were dropped off just before this. So we don't have an exact time that they got dropped off, but we do have the time when the sister is being filmed driving past, and the state is saying the girls had already been dropped off. So Betsy is still in her car at 1:46. Libby and Abby are dropped off. I put 1:48. I just put that as an approximate because it needs to be after Betsy gets all the way parked, gets out, walks all the way to the bridge, and turns around before she encounters them. And you can see, again, the timing doesn't seem exactly right on that. So it seems like there's more to understand around that. So then 2:06 to 2:09, Libby posts a Snapchat photo of Abby on the bridge, somewhere in that range. At 2:10 p.m., and there's nobody in the background. It's just Abby on the bridge. Terry Wilson sees a purple PT Cruiser at 2:10 p.m. or a small SUV type vehicle parked on the south side of the old CPS building. backed in to conceal the license plate. So that's what we were talking about earlier about how the significance to the police of the fact that it was turned around backwards. But remember, he doesn't drive a purple PT Cruiser. That's a really specific car. I mean, that's a car you notice. So he may have been right with the small SUV, though. Although that isn't what Richard Allen was driving either. He was driving a 2016 Ford Focus. So that doesn't really seem to fit. 2:13 p.m., Libby captures a 43-second video showing Abby walking on the Monon High Bridge toward Libby while a male subject wearing a dark jacket and jeans walks behind her. The man says, "Guys, down the hill." And that particular video is so blurry. It's really difficult to see. So there have been comparisons of the person they call Bridge Guy, because still shots were released to the public. And there have been comparisons of Bridge Guy to every single suspect. Could this be the right person? Could it possibly be? All right, Matthew, thank you very much. Here's a super sticker and set a member. Well, I'd love to have you as a member. I hope you'll stay as a member too, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, let's finish up our timeline for today. 2:14, should have put PM. Betsy Blair is seen on the Hoosier Harvest Store video. It's a store right nearby, leaving westbound. As she leaves, she spots a car backed in and parked in an odd manner at the old Child Protection Service building. Now, at 3:30 p.m., Richard Allen has told authorities he left the trails. I say trails. 3:57 p.m., Sarah Carbaugh is captured on video traveling east. She sees a man walking west on the north side away from the Monon High Bridge, and he was wearing a blue jacket and blue jeans and was muddy and bloody. Now, Richard Allen was just giving an approximation of when exactly he left. He said 3:30. This picture of him, this sighting of him by Sarah Carbaugh, is after he says he left. I don't know if there's a video or anything that will show us his vehicle leaving, anything along those lines. But according to him, to what he told police without knowing what Sarah Carbaugh had said, he had left about a half hour before she saw the muddy, bloody man walking. And then at roughly 4 p.m., and it's not in the affidavit. I read it somewhere, but Libby's phone actually powered off. And that's critical because, of course, he was already gone. All right, so let me remove that, and then we'll finish up. I'll try to do a question or two, but I'm not going to be able to do very much. I don't have my voice all the way back yet, as you can tell, but it's better. It's definitely better. And I thank you again for all the people who came up with these great ideas, sent me, try this, try that. I really appreciated that. It also made me feel cared for. So thank y'all for doing that. All right. So that is, in a nutshell, what I can kind of see is the state's case against Richard Allen. We are going to be covering so much more in this case. As I said, we're going to be looking at Richard Allen's case, the part of the case that so far the jury is not going to be allowed to see under the judge's ruling. We're going to be looking at other suspects. We're going to be looking at the investigation. We are going to be covering this in detail, getting ready for the trial. I think it is going to be absolutely fascinating. And as I said, I think it is so critically important because it is a test for us as a country. What is justice? We will be looking at that hard in this case. I don't know. I have no idea whether Richard Allen murdered these two girls. As I said, if he did, no mercy. He absolutely must be punished. And if he's not the right person, well, then we need to find the right person because whoever it is must be punished. That's just absolutely a fact. So let me take a look. If you would put your questions in there. If you would put a question mark at the beginning, it'll help me find your question and make it a little bit easier. So Shelley Klein asking me, so who is the murderer? I don't know yet. Annie K. It seemed the judge is so blatantly biased ahead of trial. Thoughts? Annie, I honestly think it would be unwise to make statements about whether or not the judge is biased or anything like that. I think that's kind of a broad thing to say. I do think that the judge made a clear mistake in ruling out all of his third-party culprit evidence, where he said somebody else did it and I've got some proof. I'll give you one example. The FBI filed a probable cause affidavit wanting to go into and get warrant type information from a particular suspect. If the FBI thought there was probable cause for that, then clearly Richard Allen should be able to present that. Now, the FBI never found something that they felt connected this person, but the fact that they had enough probable cause to actually go in and name this person as a potential suspect and to go after them and to file a detailed affidavit about why, we will be covering that. And I do think it's a huge mistake not to put that in. And the reason I think that is because it makes it really far more likely that Richard Allen gets a second trial. Because I think an appellate court would look at that, and I think most appellate courts would say, yeah, this really ought to come in. I felt like the decision to keep out all of that evidence was just way too broad. There was also information related to to whether or not there was geofencing information that showed other men were actually in the area of the park. There was no geofencing information to link Richard Allen. There was only his word that he was there. So, and I'll take another question or two. Linda, we are so glad you've been a member for 3 months. Thank you. I'm glad for that. And I'm hoping for complete healing too. Well, I think that's about all I'll be able to that's about the end of my voice for tonight. But if at all possible, I'm also going to be going live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. We always go live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. So I know I'll see you on Friday, and I think I'll see you tomorrow night. So don't forget to like and subscribe. This is going to be absolutely fascinating. I've never done anything like this, gone in person and reported on it. I'm really looking forward to being able to do that and to tell you what happened at the trial, particularly because it's not going to be broadcast. And so it's going to be very difficult to get information out of this trial. So if you would, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you come back for more. Thank you to Marlon and Mama Pinks for moderating tonight, and I will see you all soon.